Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Story number 1. Humans are the lowest species, written by Rebel Hero. For its entire history, humanity believed itself to be unique in the universe. For much of their history, they thought that they were alone, that their solar system was the only one. When they learned about the true scale of the universe, they immediately began their search for other life. For hundreds of years, they found nothing. A mania stirred in their entertainment spheres about what alien life could be like. Everything from conquerors to weak and lost, dangerous predators to friendly and cuddly was explored. But in every story, no matter what the alien was like, humanity would triumph. Whether it was through friendship, rebellion, defiance, or conquest of their own. Humans always wound up on top. No matter what, they believed some part of what made them human would be greater than any alien species. Imagine their surprise when they finally made contact with the universe at large and the billions of life forms in it, that they have nothing that another species doesn't. They aren't the strongest. They aren't the most hardy. They aren't the smartest or most clever. They aren't the most industrious. They didn't have the deadliest weapons or the most advanced tactics. Everything that gave them an edge for their evolution on Earth was null and void on the galactic scale. All of the traits, evolutionary hiccups and genetic mutations, the social oddities that defined them to themselves, were decidedly middling. They didn't even have the most inflated egos. Humanity was nothing. They had nothing. They joined the universe at large as lower-class citizens. They couldn't even lean on their treasured underdog tropes because there were millions of species beneath them. Through and through, they were simply average. This infuriated them. In the interest of fairness, it should be noted that humanity was not disliked. The opposite was true. Humans individually made up excellent friends, companions, crewmates, soldiers, and laborers. They were very charming, clever, and hard-working problem-solvers. It was on the whole that they strove for more. They tried to climb the ladder for millennia to no success. They had nothing to offer that another species couldn't do better. They barely managed to colonize their frankly lacking solar system and set up a few dangerous extrasolar colonies. Humanity was too competitive to accept this. They refused to accept their place in the universe. They needed to be special. They needed to be the best at something, anything. Their temper tantrums nearly earned them a place amongst the few species in history to ever be solar-locked, denied access to the universe, and forever quarantined in the home system. However, they had a revelation. The diversity that caused them so much strife throughout their history could become a great strength to them. So much of humanity knew what it was like to be considered lesser, even before the galaxy opened up to them. The hatred and prejudice that kept them divided resulted in an explosion of cultures and countercultures that mixed over time and formed even more cultures and countercultures. The wars that followed catapulted their technology forward time and time again, but always kept them from their true potential. So humanity decided that they could not play to their strengths, that they would work on their greatest weakness: unity. It just so happens that their love for our underdog stories also played a part here. But it wasn't to be humanity that played the underdog, it would be the millions of lesser races beneath them. Instead of climbing the ladder, humanity descended it. They gathered the lesser races, taught them the cultures and arts, industry and charity. They protected them from the aggression of larger empires, and secretly taught them how to fight and defend themselves. Humanity only asked one thing in return. For each race humanity helped, they had to in turn take a race under their wing. This move shocked the galactic community at large. No one had ever bothered with the lesser races except for the labor and servants. Something about this stirred a fire in humanity. Any species that came under attack, humanity would show up in force to protect them, and with every race defended, humanity gained an ally of undying loyalty. Now, it's important to note that for a long time, the humans did this quietly. They never announced their aims to anyone. When they showed up to defend one of the lower species, their ships bore no markings, answered no hails, and were even designed to be as neutral-looking as possible. So when the Rinksha thought humanity had become an eyesore on the galaxy and warped into Sol's system, what waited for them was over 700 fleets. It was the largest gathering in galactic history. It was also one of the quickest unconditional surrenders. It was rumored that so many ships were present that Earth was shrouded in an eclipse for 2 days. Since that day, humanity continued to spread through the galaxy, with their uplifted pets in tow, liberating and uplifting species after species. Humanity went at this for so long, eventually the uplifted surpassed the uplifters. Century by century, humanity fell further and further down the ladder, until at last, there was no one else to help. Humanity now sits as the lowest species in the galaxy, an ancient race of temperamental hotheads who threw the galactic community into chaos and undid billions of years of carefully maintained castes, surrounded by millions of species who owe them a debt that could never be repaid. All because we thought that they were nothing special. End of story. Story number 2. A simple question written by Rednull97. A. How dare you interrupt my break, you primitive ape? H. Whoa, slow down there, buddy. In my role as president of the Terran Union, I just wanted to ask when humanity will be given a seat at the council. And what makes you think that you primitives are deserving of such an honor? I'm not quite sure. That's why I'm asking. But we thought with the invention of FTL, our mastery of space-time manipulation, or conquering of death, we answered enough questions. So that at least one of the answers would be enough to be considered for a seat. Ha! You filthy primates are far too unevolved to even be thinking of a question worthy of answering, much less answering said question. With all due respect, I think you are underestimating us. Fine. You know what? Let's make this one of those bets that you're so fond of. If you can ask a question I cannot answer, your uncivilized, barbaric race will get a minor seat in the council. If not, you'll leave my room immediately. I have had it with all your constant insults. Why don't we go all in? We want a full seat, equal with the top 3 in power and standing. And why would I agree to such a demand from such a worthless being? If we lose, we'll not request another seat for 10,000 years. That seems an appropriate counteroffer. Or, are you scared that I could win? I'm not scared of vermin such as you. Computer, log this bet as accepted. So ask your question and doom your race to be beheaded, imbecile. Sure. What happens when an unstoppable force hits an immovable object? Excuse me, what? Oh, come on. It's no complicated question. Unstoppable force meets an immovable object. What now? That doesn't count. That question doesn't have a valid answer. EDI, count that bet as invalid. Firstly, you never specified the question has to have a valid answer. Secondly, it does have a valid answer, and quite a simple one at that. The computer, EDI. The human is correct. Whether or not the question has an answer is insignificant. Additionally, if the human can provide a valid answer, your point is made entirely moot. Fine! So do tell me the answer, you overly confident fool. It's quite simple. If one thing can't be stopped and the other thing can't be moved, they have to pass through each other. What? That is not a valid answer. You're a deceiving fraud of a being. I can assure you it is. Humanity's seat is hereby granted, and humans are from this point onward equal standing to the big 3. This decision is final. No, I refuse to accept and acknowledge those primitive apes as equals. It is my duty to remind you that it is illegal to insult those of equal standing. The appropriate fine has been transferred from your account to that of the human. Finally, justice! End of story. Story number 3. Humans and the Galactic Standard, written by Kopecht. Extract of Humans and the Galactic Community, written and published by Lieutenant Stan Stein, Humanized. The Galactic Standard is a record of every language and dialect spoken by known galactic civilizations. Not only that, it contains every form of galactic common, the language of diplomacy. You see, The Galactic spoken by mandibles and beaks is different from the one we can hear out of moving goo and lips. Sounds complicated, right? We haven't even started yet. The Galactic Standard also contains every unit of measure, every name of natural phenomena recorded, etc. You can probably imagine why no species knows everything inside. Well, that is, except the humans. They stumbled into the Tydra Federation a couple centuries back. They were already pretty established, with territory and industrial capacity, reaching medium to high in the ranking of civilizations. Apart from that, they weren't exceptional in anything. Only a few months after their acceptance into the Grand Chamber, rumors and news of their diplomacy being the strangest thing appeared. Concepts like give-and-take borders and the like were bizarre enough. But the thing that stood out was their ambassador's knowledge of many languages. Many of you readers might be thinking that this isn't such a wild concept. You'd be right, even more so if you want to know the only reason the crisis of the Lothbang frontier didn't escalate any further was that the human delegate spoke first in the Soliot tongue while confronting them. For the High Seat and their dependencies, though, more so at the time, this was brand new shiny stuff. You could almost see the skin under Tyanto, the seated scales, when Ambassador Lindley spoke to him in perfect Tantio. I digressed a bit, but you'll surely excuse me. The point is, the humans were the first to know everything in the Galactic Standard. And even today, many centuries later, not many species have managed this feat, either by lack of capabilities or simply lack of interest. End of story. I would quickly like to thank the Tier 5 members, Marky, Cam Maxwell, Caspar Arnolds, Oakfield, Lord Azrakul, and it's difficult to pronounce. Thank you very much.